Well, good morning. Here we are. It's Monday morning. It's the 21st, almost 8 a.m. And it's so good to see you here on the beginning of a new week as we take some time to contemplate some of the principles of prosperity as written by Wallace Wattles in his book, The Science of Getting Rich. Hey, I'm Vukas. I'm so glad that you are checking out this video. And what I'm doing is spending some time Monday through Friday, a few minutes every morning, maybe more than a few minutes, 15, 20 minutes or so, contemplating the principles of prosperity as well as anchoring that through an affirmative prayer. And why is this important and why am I doing this? Well, one, I am currently teaching a class at New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living in Aurora, Colorado. If you are in the area, check out this spiritual community in Aurora and on Parker Road. It is a loving community. There's so much going on there. But we recently began a class called Prosperity Plus. And in that class, The Science of Getting Rich is a text that we're using. And we're using it as a source of principles by which we can sort of inoculate ourselves, to vaccinate ourselves against some of the ideas that we've been raised with, some of the ideas that are common all around us, some of the concepts that some of the things that we imagine, and all of which aren't down the stream of prosperity, but actually most of the world is walking in or moving in a trance of scarcity, that there's not enough money, not enough time, not enough energy. And when we are measuring the life we would love to live from our current circumstances or that which surrounds us, yes, it might feel like not enough. But as we're discovering in The Science of Getting Rich, using your circumstances as the basis on which to determine what is possible for you, what is probable for you, what life desires for you, using the external circumstances, your conditions as that basis is not, it's always going to be from a place of less than, because the life that's in you is bigger and is seeking to move you forward, and the conditions around us are the result of past actions and thoughts that have finally demonstrated. So we spend some time every day to remind ourselves, remind, to put on that mind again, which is an agreement with the truth, with a capital T. So we have, up to this point, we've taken a look at the first 3 chapters. We've moved into chapter 4 of The Science of Getting Rich, and this is a relatively short book. But chapter 4 begins on page 19 here in the Tarcher Penguin version or edition. And where I wanted to start out with this morning is to wrap up the rest of chapter 4. It's only 6 pages or so, the entire chapter. But on Friday, and because I wanted to start this week with this first principle, a reminder of this first principle, to remind ourselves after the weekend to put on the principles of prosperity, to start again with the first principle of getting rich. And here is what he says. So he says, I've said that men get rich by doing things in a certain way, and in order to do so, men must become able to think in a certain way. And he goes on to say, to do things in a way that you want to do them, you will have to acquire the ability to think the way you want to think. This is the first step towards getting rich. To think what you want to think is to think truth, regardless of appearance. And I'm going to read a little more and then unpack this, because this is some powerful ideas or thoughts to contemplate here this morning. Every man, and if you have an issue with the word man, this was written in 1910, and I apologize. The language can sound a little sexist, but for its time, and to keep from changing or convert, I'm just going to read it as it's written, and we'll translate and know that man means everyone. It isn't about gender. Every man has the natural and inherent power to think what he wants to think, but it requires far more effort to do so than it does to think the thoughts which are suggested by appearances. To think according to appearance is easy, And to think truth, regardless of appearance, is laborious and requires the expenditure of more power than any other work man is called to perform. And let me read this one. I loved when I read this. There is no labor from which most people shrink as they do from that of sustained and consecutive thought. It is the hardest work in the world. This is especially true when truth is contrary to appearances. Every appearance in the visible world tends to produce a corresponding form in mind which observes it, and this can only be prevented by holding the thought of truth. Let's go back to the three principles that he started this with, and I want to read that line again. He says there are three ideas that are at the basis, or the assumption, or he even calls it a faith, from which the rest of the science of getting rich emerges. The first is that there's a thinking stuff from which everything is made. And in its original state, when it is not in form, it permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. So all around us, we are swimming in this ocean of thinking stuff, this original substance. You call it God, call it source. It is this divine substance, which is not just that we're moving around and swimming around and we are surrounded by, but it is within us. In fact, it is us. We are that wave on the ocean. There is no separation or division. We are made up of this thinking stuff. And a thought, here's the second principle, a thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. And then the third principle is that man can form in his thought, and can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon this formless substance, upon the substance that is you, that is in your mind. This is how you impress it. It's by you impress your mind. You become impressed by it. You become impressed with it. We are caught up in our appearances because we have been hypnotized by it. We can't turn our eyes away. It's like watching a train wreck, so to speak. We can't turn our eyes away. But what he is saying here is that is what's required. What's required of us is to think what we want to think, not to think in accordance with the appearances that we see. And why is this important? I'm going to go back to the line that I even finished before I read those principles. Every appearance in the visible world tends to produce a corresponding form in mind which observes it. And this can only be prevented by holding the thought of the truth. So what does that say to us here today? So here this morning, this Monday morning, as we are contemplating the principles of prosperity, we are reminded, we put in our minds here today that there is all around us this thinking substance that is thinking, and it knows how to do and to make. It's like the soil that the seed is planted in. The soil knows what to do. It is ever ready. It is present. It is waiting to receive that soil, to unleash the possibility within it. And you and I, through the thoughts that we are thinking, by the images of thought that we have, we are impressing them in the soil of our mind, into the collective unconscious, the subjective mind, whatever word you use for it. It goes into this thinking substance, and then thoughts become things. They become a thing first in our mind, and then in manifestation. So, wow, that's great. But the reverse is true as well. And that's what I want to remind you of, why we need to turn our thoughts away from that which we don't want. Because when we are sitting and looking at the appearances around us without our own intentional thought, then you know what happens? We begin to react. There is a reaction within us when we begin to look at a thing in our environment and our conditions. You look at your checking account balance, and you look at that, and then there is a reaction to that thought. And what begins to happen, there is a resonance that begins to form within you in relation to the thought or the thing outside of you And so whatever thought, whatever energy, whatever intention went into creating that condition and circumstance, now you are beginning to mirror it. You begin to then, if there are fearful thoughts that created the circumstances around you, by then looking at it and meditating on it and ruminating on it and, oh, I wish it was so different, and wringing your hands around it, then what begins to happen in you is you begin to mirror it emotionally and mentally. There's a resonance that forms, and that's not the field, because we don't want to become impressed again. We don't want to impress this thinking substance with a whole new situation to recreate that again and to keep it and to maintain it. This is how our lives are maintained, is because we spend more time thinking about the lines of action that are already present around us rather than claiming our power as children of God, as creative, powerful, spiritual beings, and then imagining a new thought, and then trusting that life is bringing that to us. So today, the invitation is for us to, we'll notice what's going on around us, but become more interested in what's in your mind and the imagination of the desired life. Desire, de-sire, sire of the Father. So the desire that's within you is Spirit letting you know, this way, come this way. And so today, as we anchor in our minds the life we would love to live, the life that we imagine, the life that is calling to us, the life that is of the Father, of life itself, that is saying, Jesus said, he says, I do that which I see the Father doing. Look at the desires that are within you, that life is saying, oh, there is so much more for you over here. As we do that and know in principle that the thought of form in my mind is impressed upon this thinking substance and it becomes that, then today we're reminded to be more interested in the desires of our heart than the circumstances that have surrounded us up to now. Oh, that's why I wanted to not start a new chapter, but to start us off this week. As I spend time contemplating the imaginations of my mind and my heart, whether it is something I want or because I am ruminating on things unwanted, it is going to create a state within me that then I am radiating out into the world, and that substance receives it and says yes, as it does to everything. Spirit always says yes. And so let's go ahead and join together in prayer. So I go ahead and say an affirmative word for us here this morning. If you're able to, I invite you to allow your eyes to gently close as I speak this word of truth here this morning. If you're unable to close your eyes, just let the words just flow into you and through you, and just allow them to be planted in the soil of our hearts. As we recognize here this morning that there is only one mind, one power, one presence. Wallace Wattles tells us that we need to, anything that suggests something different than that, we need to turn away from it. There is only one mind. There is only one life. And it is good. And that good that is all around me, in fact, what I recognize here this morning, that good, that mind, that power, that presence, it is me. It is in me. It is operating through me. It is moving me here this morning. And what I know also is that it is you. We are waves on that ocean, and we are connected at the level of source. And source is what is welling up here, what is present here as you and me this morning, and it is what is present as this word that I'm speaking here on this Monday morning. This is the activity of the mind of God, and is set it into motion, that law which is bringing every good thing into our experience. And so what I realize here this morning is that you and I not only have the ability to think along the lines of that which we desire, of that which life is desiring to bring into our lives, Not only do we have that ability, but we have the power. What I'm also knowing is that you and I here on this Monday, that we have the freedom to step into the life that we would love to live. We have the power and the freedom to think the thoughts. Today, what I declare is that any imagination, any appearance, any condition that might be around you, that might be around me, that might be around us, that has us hypnotized, what I declare is that the life that is in you and me is greater than that condition. And while it may seem like that we're powerless in the face of that condition, we're powerless to turn away, that's not the truth. What I know the truth is that what we see is a result of what we thought before. And so the mind that is in you and me, it is greater than that thought. And here today, our minds are open, our hearts are open, our hands are open. We are open to the new ideas, to the possibility, to the potential, to to which Spirit has already said yes. It is yours here today. And we allow this to be. Without delay, without hesitation, in safety and security and in a stable way, I claim that our good is unfolding right here in this moment. Abundance and prosperity and wellness, every good thing, whatever it is that is in your heart, that desire, it is yours here today, and nothing can stand in the way of it. Not even the past imaginations, because today is a new day and we are moving in the direction along the lines that Spirit has already set us in motion for. So I know this to be true today for you and for me. I am so grateful for this. I'm grateful that in truth, we don't have to make this happen. We don't have to make the seed sprout. We don't have to make the thoughts and the desires that we have to blossom. No, life is already doing that. Our job is just to get out of the way and to stop it holding images that somehow our good can be kept from us, because that's not the truth. You are a powerful spiritual being today. And I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's Facebook Live as we start moving into Chapter 5. And as we are holding our hands to the rudder of our life, co-creating with life to experience all the good that is within our hearts, within Spirit's heart. And so it is. I look forward to seeing tomorrow's video. I know that I'm holding the space for you to have an amazing day today. Peace and love. Namaste.